Well, good morning, my brothers and sisters, on this episode number 181. 181. That's right, 1 8 itself because it tasted so good. You are here tonight on our fireside chat. Just me and one other GMG bro. But first, thank you so much for joining us on this fine morning, afternoon, evening, or night as we continue discussing the game of life amidst the other games we love to watch and to play. I am one of your four hosts, the Brazilian Mountaineer and Transition Ninja, Lucas Swisher. With us only in spirit tonight, the judge, jury, and executioner of fake news and spoilers, Patrick Novosel, and the Rocket League and Beast of the East who can make you laugh in 3 words or less or your money back, Ronnie Johantis. But certainly not last, nor least. Well, actually, you're last, but not least.
I was going to say there's no avoiding that.
You're right. You're right. I can't get around that. The final member of the GMG Quadfecta, who is with me tonight, the Batman to my Robin, who's got music in his heart, Apex Legends on his brain, and La Coretta in that old stomago, Marc Boucher.
Happy Palindrome Week.
Yeah, man. It's all about the palindrome this week, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Woo!
it's nice that our episode number this week is a palindrome.
That's right. Good call. It's very fitting. Very fitting indeed. So, yeah, I think regardless of what we talk about tonight, I think it should just be called the Palindrome episode.
Yeah.
Wait, is it palindrome or palindrome?
Palindrome with an M.
I think it should be palindrome to get with the times. And it's like you just envision like this bzzz thing just flying around, you know?
Just need
Do you
to
have anybody?
Okay.
Do you have a drone or know anybody that has one?
I don't know anybody that has a drone. I don't think so. Well, never mind. Take that back. I do know one person.
All right. All right. Well, I have a neighbor. I had a neighbor in the old place I lived, and he would fly that thing on the weekends. And the first couple times he did it, I thought it was a huge bee. It was just like, bzzz, and I was like, what the heck is flying outside my window? And then I saw it. It was I mean, he actually had two drones. One of them was probably the size of uh, I mean, I guess like a notebook, a large notebook in the body, and then it had the fans coming off.
Yeah.
That was the larger one, and then he had a smaller one that was probably the size of a softball. And he loved to fly that thing.
I would.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, he's braver than I because the couple times I flew the little one we have one that's like the size of a ping pong ball, or it's definitely smaller than a baseball.
Yeah,
I hardly ever flew it in our neighborhood.
Yeah, like there's no way, like drones are cool, but there's no way I would get one because I would be too afraid to lose it. And those things are expensive.
They're expensive and they're easy to lose. Like, especially if you haven't driven them a lot, you start drifting and then you overcompensate. And then all of a sudden it's like, and it's gone.
Yep.
The most we've flown ours has been in a park with very few people around in like an open field. And I let my kids fly it for like 30 seconds each. No, it was longer than that. But as soon as I saw them getting too crazy with it, I was like, all right, break time. You guys go run through a field. Exactly. We're done. Go get some sticks, make a mud pie, eat it, whatever you want to do, not involving the drone. But anywho, yep, this is our palindrome episode. And we're, missing our boys, but we're excited to have kind of this little hang, low key, chat together. I hope somehow edited in at the beginning was a little bit of fire pit sound, like a fireplace crackle. Maybe.
Let's see if I can arrange that.
You can drum up one of those. Hopefully that went down. If not, no worries. People can just pretend, or if you have your own fireplace in your own house, just rewind and listen to the beginning of this episode by a fire and you'll get that feel.
Look up one of those YouTube videos with like the looping 10-hour fireplace.
Yeah. I love those. Yeah, on Netflix. I always play those during the Christmas time.
Yep.
Holiday season. All right, Marcus, why don't you lead out our, updates? What's new news? What's going on with you? I know you've got big news to share. So why don't you just go ahead and throw that old elephant out here for all to see.
I'm just going to put it out there. I have to apologize for anybody listening or watching this. There will be times where I will cough. There will be times where I will sniff. And that is because the old Rona has come to visit.
It gotcha.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
Welcome back to the club.
yeah. So tested positive for COVID today. Started feeling the symptoms Monday night. Um, and yeah, just decided to get tested the next day. And I have the at-home rapid tests, and I did one, um, but the results were kind of funky, and so I was like,
Mm,
no, we need to get the real COVID test in here. So
yeah, you need official stuff.
yep.
You don't need to
So
use that whole pee on the stick and then wait for the lines to change like the pregnancy tests.
and that's not how that works. But anyway,
It's not. No,
no.
I thought they just used the same ones. They just
Well, what was
kind of
I
modified it a
using?
little bit. Congratulations, you're pregnant with COVID.
um, but yeah, I've had all the fun stuff. The low grade fever, although it hasn't been as bad as the last time, because the last time I had it was December of 2020. So this is time number 2.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been as bad because the fever is low grade. Like I think the highest I saw was like 99.4, which technically in adults is a fever, but
Oh yeah, those are rookie numbers. You
yep,
gotta pump those numbers up if you really want to,
yeah.
you know, sweat it out.
But it's enough to where I've been just randomly sweating.
Oh yeah.
This is like so it's
Oh,
enough.
that's awful. Yeah.
But yeah, fever, chills, uh, aches,
They're
runny
multiplying.
nose. Yep, and I'm losing control. Yeah.
Oh, it's
Especially of my runny
electrifying.
nose
Yeah,
and
I bet.
coughing, sore throat, all the running the gamut with that.
Yeah.
But so this past weekend, I went to a 50th birthday party for my wife's uncle. Now
All
I
right. All
now
right.
I don't know if that's where I got it. I could have gotten it a couple of other places, but there's a possibility.
Yeah.
It was a nice party. It was a great celebration for him. That they went all out with it. Had a nice setup with everybody was dressed up, and like there was like a dress code of like um, basically you had to either wear black, white, or black and white. So either one of those. Uh,
Okay. Is that
um,
really how they said it? It's black, white, or black and white.
yeah, it was basically set up as black or white, black and white. That was how they put it.
Can't you do black and or white?
You could
Or do you
have.
have to say black, white, or black and white?
You technically could go either way, but not my
They went with the
invitation.
former.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But it was a nice
A zebra
party.
party. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Had a lot of fun hanging out with family and had a nice catered event and everything and um yeah, had a great time. But
Sweet.
like I said, I don't know if I got it from that party or if I got it from church or somewhere else.
Watch out for them Christians. I tell you what.
I'm t-
Spreading love, Holy Spirit, and COVID.
yep, good times. Um, but yeah, that's been pretty much my week on the real life front is just kind of dealing with the COVID and I guess CDC guidance the protocols have changed since the last time I had it.
Yeah.
So you only technically have to isolate and quarantine for 5 days
Right. Right.
versus 10. And then you basically have to make sure that your symptoms are actually getting better and that you can not have a fever without taking medication for it.
Right.
So we'll see how it goes.
Here's hoping.
Yeah. I'm taking medication that basically kind of holds off some of the symptoms like the aches and chills and stuff. So that's been
Yeah.
helpful. So I can at least function.
That's important.
But other than that, that's been pretty much it for me on the IRL side of things. But
Mm-hmm.
on the gaming side of things, I have been well at work. So last week I decided to because I hadn't ever beaten the game. I decided to play The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds after I
All
had
right.
just
Nice.
finished Link to the Past.
That seems
And
fitting, given
and
it's like almost like a spiritual successor.
yeah, basically. It's basically a sequel.
Like very direct.
Yeah, the map is the same. A lot of the enemies are the same. There's just some, mechanic differences and characters that are different.
Right, right.
Um, but yeah, I just decided to play that in my own free time because I can't really, at this point, I can't stream with my 2DS.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that was just kind of in my own free time. And I beat that.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a great game. It was fantastic. And then Friday hit, and we jumped into that old Horizon Forbidden West.
Yeah, you did.
And that game is beautiful.
That's what I've heard.
It is fan-freaking-tastic. It's great to be back in that world. I'm only a few hours in, but it's great to be back in that world. I had to get used to a lot of the mechanics, but yeah, that's like next gen to the max. Like that game is beautiful. And I'm actually playing it downstairs on my actual 4K TV. So
Ooh, that's the only way to do it, right?
yeah, so I've been playing that, been having a lot of fun with that. I'm not big on the side quests. I'm unless they're like it's something I'm like really pulled into that like really interests me. For the most part, I don't really do side quests.
Well, you don't want to go get kittens out of trees or get collect some apples for an old lady or something.
As kind as that sounds, I just kind of want to stick to the main story.
I've actually heard the side quests are on the level of like Witcher 3 and Ghost of Tsushima, but
so
that's
interesting.
just what I've heard. Huh?
So interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I've heard. But
Maybe I'll
I don't
try
know
some.
how many side quests you've done or if you've just avoided them. You're like, nope, don't know you.
Yeah, I've basically just been mainlining it the whole
Yeah.
time. But
Are
maybe
you
I'll.
playing on normal?
Oh no, I'm on super baby mode. I probably could have kicked it up.
Old baby mode.
I
Yeah.
probably could have kicked it up a little bit, but I'm okay with focusing on the story.
Yeah.
Um,
I get you.
so
Well, for me, as a trophy hunter, I've already caught wind. There's no difficulty trophies, so I'm like, I might be playing that baby on
okay.
easy. Yep, just right on down. I don't know if I'll go to. I think there's the lowest is story mode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll do story mode, but I probably will do easy, or I'll at least customize it. I kind of like that, where you can make some stuff easy and then other stuff. That's what I did with Guardians of the Galaxy. I really like their custom difficulties.
Yeah.
Where you can make some stuff easy, but then other stuff normal. So mix it up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a fan of that.
But yeah, been very much in that, very much enjoying it. It's a lot of fun.
Good.
Started streaming Ocarina of Time last Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Hey,
Yep, heard plenty of that.
look up
already.
here.
And it's like, shut up, shut up, shut up. And they've made it more difficult for you to skip the dialogue, the text.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it used to be like where you could push the button and it would move through a lot faster. But
Yeah.
and I'm playing the Switch version of it. Yeah,
Right.
It just you have to read most of it.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And for someone who's played it multiple times, and it's just kind of like, I know this stuff already. Please continue.
There
faster.
are some points where you can make it go faster, but for the most part, everybody's dialogue is just normal speed.
Oh,
I don't know why.
I'll be
they
honest.
took that
I
out.
can't stand that.
Yeah.
Even if I can like get all the text to just be there, I prefer that.
Yeah.
If it's like it's like slowly spelling it out and it won't let me speed it up, I can't stand that.
Well, the two most annoying characters that you deal with in terms of dialogue text, one of them you can actually skip through it way fast, like super
That's
fast.
good.
Which is the stupid owl.
I've heard yeah. If I remember, that's what I was going to say. I was like, I vaguely remember the owl. And if you didn't press the right, like if you tried to smash your way through the text, it would go on a loop.
Yeah, because at the end he says, "Did you get all that?" And you can hit yes or no, and if you're hitting it too fast, then he'll go right back through it.
Yeah, because he'll automatically say no, and he'll be like, "Well, let me tell you." It's like no.
But yeah, between him and Navi,
Yeah,
those are the two most annoying characters.
loudmouth fairy.
Yeah, But for the most part, other than the her squawking the hey, listen, watch out, um, you can pretty much avoid her talking to her.
Yeah, right.
Um, but yeah, it's been good to jump into that world again on the
Sure.
Switch. I'm 2 of the Young Link side dungeons in, so it's 2 out of 3. And then more than likely on Saturday, we'll be jumping into the future, into Adult
Yeah.
Link.
Back to the Future,
Mm-hmm.
where you don't need roads.
Just the Master Sword.
Right. Well, of course. You just
Yep.
ride that baby around. You're good to go.
Yep. But when I finished Link Between Worlds, I decided I'm going to keep it going a little bit on the handheld side.
Yeah.
And so, especially with the news that the Wii U and 3DS eShop, they're shutting them down.
Oh, yeah. I heard about that.
Yeah. So I decided because Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, which is a game that actually came out on the Game Boy Color,
Hmm.
since those were super cheap on the eShop, and I hadn't ever played them, I decided to download Oracle of Seasons and start playing that.
Okay. Cool.
So I'm probably about halfway through that now. So it's been a busy week on the gaming side of things.
Getting a double dose, a triple dose of Zelda this past week.
Yep, and especially because I have
Hmm.
a little bit more time to game now that I can't go anywhere.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Um, but yeah, that's been pretty much my week. Lucas, how are you, sir?
Sweet. Well, I actually got pretty busy this past week. I went on probably, I want to say it's my first business, quote unquote, ministry trip
Ooh.
in since before the pandemic, maybe since 2019. Um, I'm a part of in the Church of the Nazarene, which is the denomination I'm a part of. I am a part of a team of like 12 coordinators, and we had our first meeting in over 2 years, I think, maybe in 2 years, in about 2 years. So
Okay.
we had a meeting together in a city about an hour and a half away. So I went to that, spent 3 days there, and it was good to hang out, good to practice my Portuguese. I will be honest that since the pandemic, especially, my Portuguese has gotten super rusty, and while I can still communicate and get things done, I sound even more like a gringo with a very heavy accent than I have in a long time. So that's been good to get that practice and just be kind of immersed in people who don't really speak English. So
Now, what do they do at a denominational meeting?
So in a meeting like this, what we're pretty much doing is giving reports about 2021, what went
Mm.
down, what didn't go down, what that kind of stuff, and then we're kind of just dreaming about 2022, what we want to do, kind of share, all kind of throw our calendars together, and then also do a little bit of networking, working together. Because like in our church, each of the coordinators is responsible for different things. Like I'm responsible for, um, I'm blanking, mission projects. Usually, most commonly international mission projects,
Yeah.
but also local and national as well. And then there's another person who's in charge of compassion projects. There's another in charge of Sunday school, another in charge of mission fundraising, another that's in charge of, it goes on and on, evangelism, those kind of things. So we collaborate together, and we did a little bit of training, did a little bit of sharing our testimonies about 2021 and sharing meals together, those kind of things. So one of the guys that got to hang out with, he is a coordinator for he he works in partnership with the Nazarene Church in Gallup,
Mm-hmm.
and he leads I don't know if you've heard of Clifton Strength Finder.
No.
um, it's kind of like personality tests,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I
gift
have.
testing, like whether you're like, for me, for example, I'm about like connections. I'm blanking on relationships. Like you think there's like five of them,
Yeah.
and they pick out five. It's kind of like Myers Briggs. It's less scientific. It's more focusing on your strengths, not what you're weak at. Like it's not like, if you're extroverted, then you are weak on the introverted side or something like that.
Somewhere between Myers-Briggs and Enneagram, somewhere.
Yeah, something like that. And so I don't even, what is that? What's the second thing?
That's a different type of personality test that a lot of
Okay.
churches, the Enneagram, it's like Enneagram 1 through 6 or 7, like that. I
Okay.
have no
Okay.
idea what I am. So
I would guess that you're right, that it's somewhere in between that.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I bunked up with him. We shared a hotel room. Um, and I kid you not, the entire time we hung out, separate from our meetings, we talked about nothing else but Star Wars. Like
Nice.
literally, we talked about the original trilogy. We talked about the prequel trilogy. We talked about the sequel trilogy. We talked about Rebels. We talked about Clone Wars. We talked about Mandalorian. We talked about the Book of Boba Fett. We covered the gamut, and it was amazing. Like it was so fun. We literally talked. We talked a little bit, I guess, about our families, but for the most part, we would just be, sitting there doing something, and all of a sudden he would look over at me and be like, "What do you think of this?" Like just talk about a random scene or that kind of stuff.
We even talked
And
about the
so
Star Wars holiday special.
yeah, it really felt like yeah, yeah. We didn't go there
Okay, that's good.
as much as I actually haven't seen that. Have you seen that?
Bits and pieces of it.
I'm tempted to watch it.
It's stupid.
I've heard it's stupidly stupid.
Yeah.
Like it's the worst thing you ever watch in your life. That's
Yeah.
all I've heard.
Yeah.
And it makes me intrigued. So, but I'll save it for the holidays probably at this point. It's kind of weird to watch it in February or March.
That's fair.
But yeah, I watched that or watched that. I did not watch that, but I did talk about Star Wars with this guy his name's Caleb. On a side note, I don't know. I'd like to throw out a recommendation. I don't know if you've
Ooh.
watched any of the gallery episodes with Star Wars Mandalorian on Disney Plus. Is this called? I think it's called Star
Uh,
Wars Gallery, Mandalorian Gallery. I don't remember.
no, I don't think I've watched any of those.
It's mainly about how they make the Mandalorian, and I don't know how, but it's blown my mind. Like we watched the most recent episode we watched was about the tech that they use to film, and they don't use blue or green screens.
Oh yeah,
They
it's
use
those big screen.
projected those
Yeah.
big projected videos, and they showed us how it works, like using parallax, which is like depending on your point of view, it will shift the picture. It looks bizarre when you're looking at it with the naked eye, but when you look through the camera, it perfectly like angles the picture on the screen
Hmm.
for the actors and actresses, so it looks like real life. So like when we're watching The Mandalorian and they're in a canyon and they're walking through, that's all those screens. They're
Yeah.
not actually, it's surprising how little of it is actually old school like physical props. Like it's just a screen. Like, and they show like the Razor Crest from season 1, and literally a third of it is real and 2/3 of it is a screen. And it just the angle at which they do it makes it look like one whole piece.
Yeah.
Um, it's crazy. Like I really recommend that you at least watch the episode called Technology.
Okay.
But we've watched with the whole family the first 4 or 5 episodes, I think, just season 1. There's a second season covering season 2, and it's been, I mean, even our 9 and 11-year-old kids have enjoyed it. And it's
Yeah.
like pure documentary, like interviews and talking about, like they're sitting around a table just talking about tech and talking about acting, and like even my kids have liked it. So
Yeah,
that's saying something.
that tech is becoming more and more common, especially
Yeah.
in the time of COVID. Like for example, the Batman that comes out next week.
Oh, did they use
Yeah,
some of
they
that?
use some of that. Yeah, in
Nice.
order to get filming done, because otherwise they'd never be able to get the filming done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So that was pretty cool to see that. Also over the weekend, we hung out with a family that Mindy works with at their school, and actually, we've known since for the past few years. And part of the reason we went to their house was simply to play the Switch together.
ooh,
They went to the U.S. and around the same time we did, and someone in their family had a Switch, and they went from mildly interested to we've got to get one for ourselves.
Nice.
And they were going to put it off, but then the dad, the husband, he got COVID and he was by himself for a week. And at some point early on in that week of being by himself, he's like, I'm just getting the Switch. And so they got it. And so we played Mario Kart, we played Smash Brothers, we played some Dr. Mario, some Nintendo classics, Super Nintendo classics and stuff.
Nice.
It was a good time. Like we played for hours. It was fantastic.
Man, one game I want to play on the Switch that's like a real fun party game because it has the
Yeah.
word party in it.
Yeah.
is those
Party.
is Mario Party games. I haven't played a Mario
Oh
Party
yeah.
game in so long. And I
Yeah,
guess
I
the other
played
one.
that while in the US.
Yeah.
My family has, as you know, my family has a Switch that
Yep.
my mom and dad play very religiously.
Mm-hmm.
But when they're not playing, my niece is playing, and she introduced us to Mario Party. And it's fun. It's like a little board game with mini games, and you just go around a map, and it's a fun party game for sure.
Yep.
For sure. The last thing that went down actually just yesterday was I went to a wedding, and
Ooh.
I'll be honest, I'm kind of like I'm kind of half and half about weddings. I do like the food. Depending on the company, I do enjoy, hanging out and chatting with people. I do not like when our table gets chosen and we get, put with people that I don't know, like we wound up not having any interests or anything like that.
Oh,
But
that's awkward.
yeah, that's real awkward. But thankfully, this time we could sit where we wanted, and the people that sat with us were really cool. So we got to catch up with them and talk. But the highlight of this wedding was it was a pretty nerdy Star Wars wedding, and it was like the groom walked down the aisle wearing a Darth Vader helmet, and
Nice.
to the Imperial March with heavy metal guitar. Their
That's
cake
incredible.
topper was he and his wife, or his now wife, holding lightsabers, and just kind of standing there with lightsabers. I think he had I can't remember if he had a Sith lightsaber and she had Rey's lightsaber, maybe. Spoilers. I can't remember, but they had lightsabers as their cake topper, like
Yeah.
them holding lightsabers. It was amazing, and it was them. Like it was like he had the exact same facial hair. It wasn't just like these are people are close enough and have lightsabers.
Generic
No,
kind of thing.
yeah, no, this was like custom made. He and his wife,
That's good
he and his
stuff.
bride did. Yeah, it was really cool, and it definitely gave me ideas for when Mindy and I renew our vows someday. Definitely want to do some version of that.
Yeah.
I will say that in my imagination, while I was sitting there through the ceremony and through a lot of it, I added stuff that I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool? You guys know I have my Yoda outfit. If someone could wear the Yoda outfit and officiate over the wedding and talk like Yoda.
Oh my gosh.
With this ring we wed, yes. Repeat after me, you will. Yeah, that would be amazingly stupid. No, I would not do that. But it just got me to thinking like how fun that would be and how nerdy that would be.
That would be
Uh,
fantastic.
or or the groom and the bride, the husband and wife, when they're walking out, you have people stand along them and hold lightsabers up like military, and they
That
walk
would
through the
be awesome.
lightsabers. That would be really cool. That was another thing I thought of. So some ideas for the future, maybe 20th or 25th wedding anniversary. We'll see. Keep that. Yep, tuck that baby away right up there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that was the IRL, the life front. On the digital front, I am currently still strolling through the Uncharted hexology. Currently in Uncharted 4, loving it, of course.
Of course.
Of course, it's a beautiful game, and the story is easily my favorite Uncharted uh, story of all of them. And then I'm also crawling through Sifu, and I mean literally crawling. Like, yeah, I've died a good bit. I've punched people.
What age are
Wound
you
up
right
on
now?
I want to say I'm like in the mid 40s,
Okay.
low 40s. I'm also crawling through because I haven't been really playing it that much. But I played it a little bit. I do intend to invest more time in it, but
Yeah.
it's just kind of lower on the totem pole right now. Have been continuing unpacking with the family. We added our kids to the mix, and they actually enjoyed unpacking with us. Unpacking, not impacking.
I was gonna say I've never heard of that game.
In packing. No, they enjoyed unpacking. Now I will say James is more like me, and he's kind of like, yeah, this is cool. It's a game.
It's a
He
thing.
definitely was like messing with stuff, like trying to put stuff in weird places, and we had to yell at him to stop. He would like open a drawer and then try to close the closet, and then just bang the closet on the drawer like over and over and over and over
Typical
again.
boy.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not really that surprising. But Tasha loves it. Like she's like, oh, is it my turn? Can I go? Can I go again? Can I do it? Can I go 3 times? And we just did a
Nice.
controller swap and completed a house together. It was fun. I have not touched Horizon Forbidden West yet, and it makes me a little sad. And I have a little bit of FOMO seeing all the pictures, seeing how the world of that game is more beautiful than real life.
Yeah.
Like it just looks immaculate. It's
It's
crazy
it's
how
insane.
beautiful it is. It's insane. So I can't wait to jump into that world, but unfortunately, I have not been able to, partly because I am just, I'm stuck on a game, like in a good, bad, nerdy sort of way. Slay the freaking Spire. Like I've talked about this
Okay.
game. I beat it with the three main characters. And for the past few weeks, I've been trying, not playing it every day, but playing it from time to time, trying to beat it with the fourth character, the Watcher, and trying to beat the secret fourth act, true ending
Yeah.
path. And it is kicking my butt. It's just
Hmm.
like taking me out to the woodshed and just kicking me to the curb multiple times. I finally wised up and said, you know what, I'm just going to use all the characters again. And so I've looped through and I finally was able to make it to the final boss of the true final boss, whatever. And I got him like halfway, and then he just like smeared me across the windshield. Like it was just like, man, no mercy. So I can't give up on the game. I want to see the true ending. I want to really beat it. And it really got me to thinking about how I'm like neglecting Uncharted, like Sifu, Horizon, Forbidden West,
Yeah.
all for this card game that has ugly graphics. It's not really. I mean, it's like so like just numbers and cards and RNG and like it's not really an attractive game. And I just am so like, oh, I got to do this, and I really just love it so much.
Hey, I'm playing a
And
Game Boy Color game, so
that's
no
true. Look
judgment
at
from me.
us. I know you won't judge me because you are just as much, if not more, of a nerd than I am,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually good because that's the topic for tonight: the nerd experience, celebrating our nerdiness. That's right, folks. We are talking about being nerds. We are proud. We are not ashamed to be called nerds. And so we just want to talk about the experience, whether from, day zero when we were, I don't even know when Mark first considered himself a nerd. I will say that I was kind of slow to bloom into a nerd. But yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about our experiences. Of course, we know lots of nerds, especially on our Discord.
We
So we're
sure
going to
do.
be throwing out some stories, some questions. But I think maybe the most appropriate thing, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, is Mark, what is your nerd origin story? Where did it all begin for you?
So I think probably one of the one of the things. So I kind of have to differentiate between stuff that was okay, quote unquote, to like as a little boy when I
Uh-huh.
as a kid, and stuff that was like straight up nerdy. And I think that was probably when I would watch old reruns of Doctor Who, like the
Oh
the
yeah, yeah,
70s Doctor Who. Um, and just how much I gravitated towards sci-fi type movies and TV shows and things like that, which is
right.
partly because of my dad. My dad, he's more so a Trekkie than a Star Wars fan,
Mm-hmm.
but he likes both. And we had the trilogy, Star Wars trilogy that we would watch when I was a kid. He would watch Star Trek: The Next Generation all the time, and the original 5 Star Trek movies, and
Oh
things
yeah,
like that.
classics.
and so I think he kind of contributed to me getting the bug that kind of stayed. Um, but yeah, just growing up, I just gravitated more to that type of science fiction, fantasy type stuff. That was more the stuff that just interested me.
Right.
What about
Yeah.
you, sir?
I think for me, there's two moments that I think of when I think of like when I became self aware that I was a bit of a nerd.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would say overall, I didn't have like, like back in the 80s and 90s, you had that typical, like movie nerd or, you know, the idea of what a nerd looked like. And
Yeah,
I didn't have that experience. I don't think there was anything really as a kid that I got so into that I would consider myself a nerd. But I always appreciated, like, I almost feel like I was a Renaissance nerd. Or I even think today that I'm more of a Renaissance nerd where I'm just like, I like to just dabble in a little bit of everything.
you walk
Honestly,
in
if I had
both
the time,
worlds.
yeah, just walking in all the different worlds. Because even in school, like I had my group of friends that I hung out with, and we played video games. We played outside. We played sports. It was a variety. So it was very just eclectic. Like we just all kind of touched on different things.
Sure.
I even feel like in high school, like I could hang out with the jocks, I could hang out with the artists, the artistic people, I could hang out with, the nerds. And, at that time in high school, I was in a really strong group of Christians that, we were part of, ironically, FCA, even though I wasn't an athlete, Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Yeah.
But it was the only Christian club we had. So I was a part of it.
Yeah.
Um, but there are two moments, and I think the first one was in middle school. I remember it was the middle of the summer, and it was the middle of the day, and this guy and I, well, I say guy, we were in middle school. So this other friend of mine that actually I only saw during the summer because he didn't go to my school. He lived, he lived like 25, 30 minutes away, but he was in another county, so he didn't go to the same school.
Yeah.
Um, but we were playing, I'm going to guess it was like Contra or something. And we were just like, we were not giving up
Yeah.
and we were dying. We were going back. We were getting further, further every time. But it was the middle of the day and all of our friends, family, everybody was outside playing basketball, playing tag, swimming in the pool. They're like, hey, come on out and let's play. And we're like, no, we've got to beat this. And I'll be
We're
honest that
doing this.
we're doing this now. We never beat it, but we probably got the furthest I've ever gotten in Contra.
Mm.
And I mean, it's such a like a vague memory that it was such a fever dream that I don't even know how far we actually got. I just remember when we were done, we were like, I can't believe we got that far.
Yeah.
We didn't beat it, but we felt accomplished. That's one of the moments I definitely felt like a nerd because it's just like I chose this little video game over, being outside, hanging out with people. I was like, no, I've got to do this.
Yep.
The second one is I think it's the summer after I graduated high school. Um, I was at, I want to say I was at the pool, the public pool, and I was talking to a friend, and he had with him these cards called Magic the Gathering. And
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, what is this? What is this Magic the Gathering? They're like, well, let me show you. And he explained all the rules to the game. And I was like, this is kind of cool. And it was my first experience with a non-traditional tabletop game, a card game of sorts, like an organized carded Dungeons and Dragons sort of thing where you have all the card values and attacks and mana and energy, blah blah blah. Very much like Slay the Spire, which is probably why I like it so much because it reminds me of those original Magic the Gathering and now Hearthstone, and there's a bunch of card games out there. But that was the first one that I got into was Magic the Gathering. And that whole summer I collected, I bought packs, I played with this guy, I found other people. Later on, I went on a trip where I met another guy who played Magic the Gathering, and he said he was going to send me like a box of Magic the Gathering
Ooh,
cards. He
got
never
the
did,
hookup.
but
Oh,
still, yeah, no, it didn't happen. He was all talk. But
boo.
yeah, so it just those are the two moments that really stick out as to when I felt like, you know what, Lucas, you're kind of a nerd.
Yeah, kind of part of the reason that I had mentioned this topic to you. Um, I was just thinking about what I refer to as the quote unquote the dark times. And when I say that, I mean I feel like the definition of nerd has changed, or geek has changed over the years.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
You know, you mentioned like the classic movie nerd, like, you know, thick rim glasses and like pocket protector, all that stereotypical
Right.
nerd type stuff. And I feel like that's changed, and you can be a different kind of nerd. It's kind of become a little bit more like it's just something you're super enthusiastic about and super passionate
Sure.
about. Um, you know, there are car nerds, there are football nerds, things like that. Like,
Exactly.
but going back to the dark times, as I refer to them, there's this kind of point in between. It's probably about middle school, and that's right around the age of puberty, and you start liking girls and all this kind of stuff,
Right.
or whatever. But yeah, there just comes a point where it's not cool to talk to anybody about, you know, certain things that you enjoy,
Right.
things that I never stopped enjoying even after, you know, it was quote unquote unacceptable to,
Or cool. Not
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like, for example, middle school and high school, like I still kind of kept track on like Power Rangers and things like that, and Pokemon
Yeah.
and Dragon Ball Z and
Yeah.
things
I
like
definitely
that.
did Pokemon in high school.
Yeah.
I got hooked on that.
And but I felt like that I wasn't as okay sharing that with people other
Right.
than like my like very close circle of friends, because otherwise you get made fun of,
Right.
you know. But I was never like I could hang out with different kinds of cliques and be okay with people, but generally I was in the group of like, I guess if you want to call it the quote unquote outcasts, or anything like that, just the not cool crowd basically.
Right.
Um that was basically my crew, where we were all into like anime and video games and things like that. And but then I got into high school and became a different kind of geek, where I was the music geek, because I was part of the that show choir that I've told you about
Right.
in
Yep.
high school. Um, so it was a different kind of geek, but and I had some close friends that I could be close with, and but the kind of stuff like the fantasy type stuff kind of got pushed to the back.
Yeah.
Um, and and just kind of focused on other things like uh, girls and wanting to date and things like that. So
Yeah. I mean, that's, that was just how it worked. And I remember, um, I would say, I definitely feel like it ebbed and flowed
yeah,
over middle school, high school. You went through seasons where you're like, girls, school, and then nerdy stuff. Like um, I remember, there for a while, I stopped playing video games. Like after that middle school summer when I, played hardcore, during the middle of the day when I should have been outside, having fun and swimming in the pool and stuff. I was just inside playing video games. I veered away from that eventually.
yeah.
And, Super Nintendo came, and, I knew people that had it, but I didn't really play it. And then some other systems came around like N64. But I would say my nerdiness in video games came back in with the PlayStation, with the PS1. And I remember particularly when I got the PS1, and then later on, a year or two later, Final Fantasy VII came out, and
Okay.
I put some hours into that. I remember coming home from school and not doing my homework first, not doing my chores first, instead playing Final Fantasy VII until I got yelled at, until my parents came around and were like,
Pushing the
"What are you
limit.
doing?" Yeah. And I mean, I remember that first playthrough I played for like 75, 80 hours, which when you're playing, I played in the living room. Like I
Yeah.
played in the big screen TV. I didn't have a TV in my room at the time. And so like weekends I was playing, I don't remember how I was able to play so much because we only had the one big TV, um, you know, and that's
Yeah.
just how it went. And I got neck deep in that game. Like
Mm.
I both figured stuff out and I found the strategy guide. I don't think it was online yet. I might have purchased it or borrowed someone's copy and, breeded all the chocobos and got the super mega golden white, whatever chocoboo that can run over everything. And you can go get special materia and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely a big nerd when it came to that. But I don't remember really. I just enjoyed it in and of itself. Like we talk about it now, like at the podcast and through Discord. I didn't really, even in my group of friends, I wasn't like, man, Final Fantasy VII, you need to try it out. It was just for me. Like I
Yeah.
just used it as an escape. I really didn't feel the pressure to talk about it. It was something that I enjoyed on the side, but it wasn't like the main thing in my life, even though I invested a lot of time in it. So
Yeah.
it was always kind of a private thing. Not like I was hiding it, but it just wasn't like it did come up in conversation, and I didn't know anybody else that played Final Fantasy VII
Yeah. That
at the
was
time. So
that was what video games basically became to me for the most part. Like I had maybe one or two friends in high school that I would say anything video game wise, but most part it was all just me time, personal time. Um, but then I got to college, and especially that was when online gaming was on the rise and
yeah,
things like that.
for
And
sure.
you know, in college, like yeah, you're young adults, you're just fresh out of high school, so you're not like super mature adults, but you're at the point where you kind of pass that whole clicky kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I developed a great group of friends that had a lot of the same interests that I did, and um, I mean one of them was Aaron, and Aaron listens to the podcast now as
yep.
part of our Discord community.
Hey, Aaron.
Um, I was able to meet people with common interests that way. Um,
Yep.
and then there was just kind of a it's just kind of a switch, kind of a change in the atmosphere, if you will, of like it becoming more acceptable to be nerdy, like nerd culture and things like that.
Right.
I don't know. I can't specifically pinpoint what it was, whether it's, the rise of these major comic cons or, things like the MCU being more accessible to wide groups of people.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know what it is, but somehow the things got switched and it suddenly became cool to be nerdy.
it's true. Yeah, I think it was a mix of things. It was, I want to even say that the MCU was like the latter,
Yeah.
the other end of like really sealing the deal for nerds. Um, because like you watch some of those old movies, and what happens in a lot of those old movies, the nerd is the one that helps the jock learn algebra or
Yeah.
like it really when it really comes down to it, the nerds that are into Dungeons and Dragons or whatever back in the 80s and 90s, like they're also super smart and they're really good at school. And eventually like that gets noticed. And then those people go on to make a bunch of money. You think of like Steve Jobs, Bill, not
Bill
Bill Nye
Gates.
this, I mean, Bill Nye the Science Guy,
Sure.
Bill Gates, all the Bills. Like you think of those guys and they created some of the most amazing tech and tech progress in our times, and they were huge nerds. And
Yeah.
so more and more kids wanted to be like that. They're like, I want to invent, stuff like Apple and Microsoft, what they're doing. And those are just a bunch of nerds in their garage, so between the pop culture, between, just the skyrocketing tech of the late 90s, the early and late 90s and into the early 2000s. I mean, it just made sense to be a nerd.
Yeah, and I think
It
there's
just,
there's a lot more outlets to where you can, especially on the internet, to where you
yeah,
can be a nerd,
exactly.
and kind of let your nerd flag fly.
Right.
Whether it be Twitch or Discord or
Yep.
something like that. Um,
It's true.
it's just become.
Speaking of
Oh, go ahead.
speaking of Discord, why don't we use that to transition to some of the joiners
Springboard.
who had a few things to say about being a nerd. Old Delvin Cox had this to say on the GMG Discord. One of the best experiences you can have being in geek slash nerd culture is going to pawn shops in areas that frankly don't have interest in that stuff and finding hidden gems. I went to a pawn shop the other day and got a PS3 and a Game Boy Color for $100. That is a steal.
Wow.
The owner had tons of video game stuff that he says just doesn't sell, so he has to sell it for cheap. Have any of you experienced something like this? I think for me, where I grew up, pawn shops aren't really a thing. That's more
Mm.
of a bigger city uh, kind of deal. Ours was yard sales.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
you, you
absolutely.
go to you go to yard sales, and I'm not personally a yard sale dude, but I know people
Yeah.
that have gone to yard sales and just found the craziest stuff. Unfortunately, I am one that's on the other end, the
Oh yeah.
fools who got rid of their tech
Yeah.
and that sent it to a Goodwill, sent it to a pawn shop, put it in a yard sale. Like there are times when I look back and I'm like, man, if I just had my Atari Jaguar still with some of those games, if I still had my OG Nintendo, regular Nintendo, but then at the same time, I'm like, I wouldn't really play them.
Yeah.
One, I have the Nintendo Classic, the Super Nintendo Classic. Those have pretty much majority of the games that I really liked and want to play.
Yeah.
And then the PS4, 5, Xbox Series S. I mean, I'm just like, let's be honest with ourselves. I like those collectibles, but I really only do video games to play them. I don't really get a kick out of having the old stuff. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's really cool, Delvin, that you're able to find PS3 and Game Boy.
Yeah, I know a
Uh,
couple of people they've actually made it like a side hustle for them.
yep,
Like
one of the Stapletons.
Josh Stapleton,
Yep,
that's one of his side hustles. Like I bought a Wii U from him.
yeah,
Um, and I have another friend, Sam, who he's started doing the same thing, and they both go around to yard sales and flea markets and things like that, and they gobble them up and they resell them, and that's crazy. Um,
yeah.
I don't
Have you
think
ever have you ever found anything like by accident, done any pawn shopping, yard selling, eBaying? I did do eBay for a while in college. I bought I remember buying a bunch of Nintendo and Super Nintendo games for like $2, $3, which would go for 100 times that now, 50 times that.
there's probably been something like that I've been able to find. I just can't think of it. The most recent one
Cartridges
is
galore.
Cartridges Galore. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I
Um,
can't wait to go back to
that
that
was a
place.
diamond in the rough. That was a great place.
For sure. For sure. Um, you had mentioned Aaron there before. You done messed up. Aaron. He mentioned that other than briefly in college, I haven't found real life fellow nerds to hang out with, which is odd because judging by the internet, we're hiding in plain sight everywhere.
I'm right
Here we
here.
are. Woo. Yeah. No, it's true. It's like I other than online on Twitter, on Discord, through this podcast, through Married to the Games podcast, I haven't naturally come upon a large group of nerds, but I will say because a lot of my ministry in life has taken me to areas where younger people are gathered together, it's been easier for me to find groups of nerds. Like when I was in college, I definitely started to take a break from gaming, but then I lived 3 out of the 4 years in the freshman dorm,
Mm,
once as a freshman and then twice as a resident assistant as an RA. And so I was around video games, I was around nerd culture, anime, all that stuff all the time. And so I just got back into it or kept with it naturally because of those guys.
yeah.
But even in Brazil, you know, the way I've been able to maintain some relationships outside of just the typical traditional go to church, go to Sunday school, small groups, that kind of thing has been through video games. You know,
Yeah.
there were a couple guys who were my age. They invited me over to their house to say, hey, let's just do you play any video games? I'm like, yeah. And
Do
so
I?
that's how I got brought back into the PlayStation fold when I played PlayStation 3 for the first time because as you may or may not remember, But when it originally came out, it cost $600. They told
Mm-hmm.
you to get a second job to buy it. And I was like, I ain't got time for that. I ain't
Nope.
got money for that. Uh, but then I played Uncharted 3 was the first Uncharted that I played. And that was just like a brand new experience to me. I was like, I didn't realize they had come so far in video games. And it just, yeah, hook, line, and sinker drew me in. And then I eventually went back, played all the Uncharteds and got a PS3 and, PS4, PS5, rest is history. But
Yep.
yeah, that's how I've maintained, some really close relationships started with video games. I started a discipleship group in one of the last towns we lived in, uh, out of video games. And even now we have a group of guys that we gather with on Thursday nights, our God and Gaming group. And we talk about God and play video games
Yeah.
every week. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely a lot of the game, nerdy relationships I have are through online and Discord and through this podcast and through
Mm-hmm.
Twitch and things like that. The nice thing is a lot of my extended family, like my wife's side of the family, my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, and his brother, they're big into sci-fi, fantasy, nerdy stuff. So I can talk
Right.
superheroes and video games and stuff with them.
Nice.
So that's been great. Yeah, they're mainly the ones that I guess quote unquote talk nerdy with. That and my wife.
There you go.
Yeah.
Talk nerdy with me. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. I know that's not how it goes, but
Yes.
Speaking of my wife, Lord Zukor, not my wife, but he starts his Discord message as so. My wife is
My
not
wife.
a Star Wars fan and thinks it's dumb. Wow.
That's sad.
I'm sorry to hear that. That makes me sad, Lord Zukor. Do you have any nerdiness that your wives don't approve of?
No. No,
No,
no, not
she's
really.
100% on board.
Yeah, she's pretty much on board with everything. The only part where it kind of rubs at all is when it costs money. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Money and time would be the two that my wife's
Yeah.
like, I understand, that's fine. You got your little hobby, but you might be spending a little too much time.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, you're right. I'll back off. Yeah. So
Yeah, I kind of get indicators when I'm like, okay, time to put the game down. Um, but yeah, when she's gaming right next to me, like she has basically commandeered my Switch to play Skyward Sword. So she's playing on through that. Like
yeah.
any of the MCU movies or any superhero movies, fantasy movies, whatever, I have to watch those with her.
Yep.
Um,
That's exact
that's
same with me. So, Lord Zukor asked about if our wives disapprove of anything. And of course, the time and money that we put into video games that I put into video games is often disapproved. But MCU, Star Wars, Harry Potter, all that nerdy stuff, she is 100% on board. If it's literature, well, for one, my wife is a lit nerd.
yeah,
Like she is a nerd through and through. You could ask her about any classic book from Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, Russian novels, you name it, and she has read it and she knows a lot about it. So that I have that going for me in terms of the story, and then you wash it over into you kind of meet in the middle with movies, and we're all about it. Like we've read all the Harry Potter books together, we've watched all the movies, of course. She loves all of it, geeks out over it. We talk about it, talk about the meaning behind it, the hero's journey, all of that. Like that's where my wife and I just match up perfectly is
yeah.
in that stuff. So yeah.
Common ground is great.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Continuing in the realm of not having common ground, Chris the Rock said, once I asked for a day off of work long in advance for the PS4 release. He said, once the day got closer, we got some emergency at work requiring me to cancel my day off. My boss and his boss felt bad and asked what I had planned. When I told them, they both burst out laughing. They couldn't believe that they felt bad for me. To this day, I'm still pretty bitter about their reaction, LOL. Video games get a bad rep and are underestimated, but people that snob them should take a hard look at the gaming industry financials. It's one of the biggest industries and deserves more respect. Amen to that.
Yeah, man.
Definitely
Absolutely.
deserves respect.
What do
Yeah,
they know? What do they know?
yeah. What are they? They still think it's Pac-Man and Mario which still exists, but seriously, video games have come so much further. I mean, like, I know that there are, Call of Duties and a dime a dozen things that are just like goofy, just shooting stuff and running around. But for each of those, there's another one that's like got a deep story that brings people together, playing games. Like, not everybody can just go out there and kick a soccer ball around, shoot some hoops, play football, all the stuff that requires outside equipment and good weather and all that jazz.
Yeah.
TVs are so common, you know, living rooms, people gathering together and playing games together. Like, when I don't know what to do with someone, I'm like, hey, do you want to play some Jackbox? Do you want to play Tetris? Do you want to play Mario Kart, whatever? Like, I just throw that out. And more often than not, someone will at least go for a few rounds, and then you got to break the ice.
Yep.
And it's a good way to do that.
Absolutely.
Definitely underestimated. We're with you, Chris. Forget those guys. You need to take another day off just for fun.
Yeah.
Just for funsies. Just be like, you know what? I need to take it off day off because
Stick it
I
to the
want to.
man.
Yeah. Travesty on the Discord said, I think nerd/geek label has changed over the years. It used to be a sort of look down on. Now, aren't we all a little bit of a geek or a nerd? I'd say very few people aren't. For me, growing up, I just understood computers. I can code, take them apart, customize, fix, know how to hack and manipulate software. Over the years, I'm the go-to for phones and computers whenever someone has issues or broken screens. I guess that makes me a geek, sci-fi movie lover too. Plus, remember, I hooked up with Betty in Revenge of the Nerds. And then he posted a little picture that says, "Come to the nerd side. We have pie," and of course, the shape of PI.
3.14.
That's right. No, keep going. You're not supposed to start there.
No, I'm not that much of a nerd.
Fake nerd.
Yeah.
I don't remember it either. It's like 3.14567893099. That's not it either, but it's close enough.
Yep.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. We talked a little bit about that earlier, but for sure, like, I like the idea that everybody's really nowadays a nerd at something.
Yeah.
Like, there's always something. It doesn't have to be games or movies or, like I said, my wife is a literature nerd, just has an insane amount of knowledge about literature, classic literature, modern literature. She loves Nicholas Sparks, and she tells me all the stories when she reads them. I do not subject myself to all that because I don't like to cry 24/7.
The thing that drives me nuts is like, people are so, and I'm not knocking books at all, reading, anything like that. Reading is great.
Wow.
It's a great
way to be a
pastime.
reading hater.
No.
Book hater. Already calling it.
My wife is a book nerd. But no, not knocking against book reading at all. But I'm just saying, like, everybody's like, yeah, it's great for you to read a book and that's a great way to spend your time. But if you talk about video games, that's a complete time suck. It's a waste of time. Why even bother? But a lot of these games now have these incredible stories. And it's like, it's almost like you're reading a book.
It really is.
So,
it is.
So I think that gets a bad rap a lot.
I totally agree. And I think that, especially nowadays when you can listen to books, where you can, listen audibly to the Bible, to really pretty much anything, you don't really have to read anymore. Does that take away from, like, is it, it's no longer, you're not actually reading a book because you just listen to it? Yeah. And no, you're still, quote unquote, reading a book. Like, you're consuming the information, you're imagining, you're getting a moral lesson, you're being taken to another world. And I mean, that's what video games are.
Yeah.
I think it's because it has its basis in Mario, its basis in childish things. I mean, that's where it started. So it makes sense that some people would still be stuck on that. But for those of us who have grown up with it and paid attention, we know that no, video games are our books. You know, there's so many deep, meaningful stories in video games, movies, books alike. So I'm 100% with you, man. True story indeed. Well, any other nerdy things you want to throw out there?
I think
last call.
I think I'm clear on that.
Yeah. I mean, just continue to nerd on. If you guys on Discord, on Twitter, you want to throw out some nerdy things that we missed, If you want to, expound on some of the subjects we talked about, please feel free to join us on Twitter, on Discord. Of course, the links are in the show notes. You can click on those. You can come hang out with at least Mark and Chris, probably not myself because I've become a slacker as of late on that
Slacker.
old twitch.tv. I'm a slacker. But early AM, you can check out Chris. He's currently playing through Horizon Forbidden West.
Yeah.
And you can hang out with Mark on Saturday mornings playing through all the mainline Zelda games. So
Mm-hmm.
check him out, hang out with him. That, of course, if you're feeling up to the task. If not, you can, of course, continue to listen to the podcast. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, and I believe Spotify.
Yep.
We would appreciate that. And besides that, we hope you have a good one. We hope you continue to be nerdy and don't hide it, flaunt it, show it to the world. That's
Let your nerd flag
part of
fly.
that's right. That's part of the reason you were given that gift. You got to share it with the world. So, alrighty then. The spirit of Pat and Ronnie J, and of course Marcus, my friend, along with you, our beloved friends, family, and adjoiners. Go get your good morning this week, and may God bless and guide your lives as you live, as you work, and as you game. I don't know why I went to a British accent, but I did.